You know that massive, intimidating fortress of traditional business? Well, it's fallen. Those exhausting, outdated rules you've been fed for years, the endless, soul-draining meetings, those mandatory 80-hour work weeks, that desperate obsession with securing outside funding, they are officially dead. For decades now, we've basically been sold a lie. We've been told that to build a genuinely successful company, you have to sacrifice your soul, your free time, and honestly, your sanity to this bloated corporate machine. We've been convinced that you need millions of dollars and some rigid 5-year plan before you even take your very first step. But what if that entire narrative is just dead wrong? What if those supposed requirements are actually the exact chains holding you back from true greatness? Because as you'll see, the real path to victory isn't about doing more at all. It's about relentlessly stripping away the unnecessary.
And the answer to all of this lies in a pretty revolutionary 2010 manifesto called Rework, written by Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson. In this explainer, we're unpacking a completely battle-tested, totally unapologetic blueprint for building a profitable, sustainable business using exactly what you have right in front of you today. By the end of our time together, you're going to learn how to do significantly more with dramatically less. We're going to show you how to absolutely shatter those outdated corporate rules that are honestly just slowing you down. And most importantly, you're going to learn how to launch your dream immediately. No waiting for permission, no waiting for funding, and definitely no waiting for the so-called perfect moment. So here is the exact Rebel playbook we're walking through today. First, the new business reality. Second, stop planning, start making. Third, ruthless productivity and focus. Fourth, outsmarting your competitors. Fifth, lean hiring and culture. And number 6, act before inspiration expires. Let's dive right in.
Okay, Section 1. The new business reality, destroying the myths.
First things first, we have to completely deconstruct this rather toxic idea of the real world. You know, the corporate real world is often just a really convenient excuse for inaction. It's this cynical place where new, unfamiliar ideas supposedly fail right out of the gate, and outdated, highly inefficient methods are worshipped just because, well, that's how it's always been done. But the truth? The barriers to starting a business have completely collapsed. Just look at the stark contrast here. The old way absolutely demanded massive physical offices, millions in venture capital, and these soul-crushing 80-hour weeks just to prove you were dedicated. But the new reality? It requires literally nothing but a laptop, a decent internet connection, and the raw courage to actually embrace your constraints. And that's key, because constraints are not your enemy. They are actually your greatest ally. Having less money, less space, and less manpower, that forces you to make hard, crystal-clear choices. And from those narrow, focused choices, immense creativity is born. You really don't need an MBA or some elaborate infrastructure. You don't need a massive team. You just need to begin.
Moving right along to Section 2. Stop planning, start making, the execution phase.
It is time to aggressively tear down the sacred cow of long-term business planning. Planning is guessing. Now, it's a punchy phrase, sure, but it is an absolute undeniable truth. Think about it. Long-term business plans just create this dangerous, comforting illusion of control. The further into the future you try to predict, the more assumptions you're just stacking on top of each other, until suddenly your entire strategy is built on a house of cards. Markets shift overnight. Technology advances at breakneck speed. Your competitors pivot when you least expect it. So that pristine 50-page 5-year plan, it's really just a fragile fantasy written before you had any actual real-world data. We need to stop hiding behind spreadsheets and projections. Writing a business plan is not working on your business. It's actually avoiding the work. The most valuable market-tested information doesn't arrive while you're brainstorming in some boardroom. It arrives the very second you start doing the actual work and put something real out into the wild.
And this brings us right to the lean launch sequence, which is basically your blueprint for striking fast. Step 1, you have to find the epicenter. Look at it this way. If you strip away absolutely everything from a hot dog cart, the umbrella, the relish, the shiny metal cart itself, the only thing that truly matters is the hot dog. So find the absolute bleeding core of your product, the one thing it simply cannot exist without, and build that first. Step 2, build half a product, not a half-assed one. A small, flawless, beautifully executed product is infinitely more powerful than a massive, broken, complicated one. And Step 3, launch right now. The authors of this philosophy actually launched their own flagship software, Basecamp, before they even had a way to bill their customers. Why would they do that? Because billing wasn't an urgent problem for day one. They didn't wait for perfect conditions, they launched, they learned from real users, and ultimately they won the market.
All right, Section 3. Ruthless productivity and focus, working smarter. Society constantly tells us that grueling, endless hours are some sort of badge of honor, but working yourself to the bone is not evidence of dedication, and it's certainly not evidence of productivity. Honestly, it is just evidence of massive waste and inefficiency. Let's break down the brutal math of corporate waste for a second. A 1-hour meeting with 10 people, that doesn't cost your company 1 hour. It costs 10 hours. 10 hours of focused, creative energy completely drained into a room full of abstraction, drift, and usually pretty meaningless talk. Meetings multiply like a virus. They consume preparation time, they completely shatter the momentum of deep work, and they rarely result in any decisive action. They are quite literally where productivity goes to die. If a problem can be solved with a quick message or a 2-minute phone call, please do not pull people into a room. You have to protect your time and your team's time like your business depends on it, because it does.
We also need to talk about artificial urgency, because it's a disease. ASAP is poison. When you label every single request in your business as soon as possible, you are prioritizing absolutely nothing. Everything can't be number one. ASAP creates this incredibly toxic culture of inflation. It breeds unnecessary panic, it destroys the quality of meaningful work, and it puts your entire team on a fast track to profound burnout. When everything is treated like an emergency, the real emergencies just get lost in the noise. It interrupts people's focus, yanking them right out of the zone for things that could easily wait until tomorrow. So stop treating every minor inconvenience or random stray thought like a 5-alarm fire. Use emergency language exclusively for actual business-threatening emergencies. Give your team the peace and the uninterrupted focus they actually need to build something great.
And while we're at it, we need to completely dismantle the destructive workaholic myth. Sleep is not a weakness, it is a strategic advantage. It is not wasted time, it actively, measurably supports superior work. Exhaustion destroys your judgment, it evaporates your creativity, and it completely tanks team morale. Running on fumes and pulling all-nighters is absolutely not an achievement you should be boasting about. It is a failure of planning. Actually, sending your people home at 5 p.m. is one of the most powerful competitive advantages you can possibly build. Think about it. A person who has a rich, fulfilling life outside of work comes back the very next day, sharp, focused, and ready to find elegant, efficient solutions, rather than just throwing mindless, exhausted hours at a wall. Respect the necessity of rest, and your output will multiply.
Which brings us to Section 4, outsmarting your competitors, the judo technique. Now, when you're small, you obviously cannot outspend the massive corporations. It's just math. Instead, you have to use your supposed weaknesses as your absolute greatest weapons in the market. You must decommoditize your product. Now, to decommoditize means making your unique personality, your specific flaws, and your uncompromising philosophy an inseparable, deeply integrated part of what you sell. Take Vinny's Sub Shop in Chicago, for example. They believe so deeply in fresh ingredients that when they run out of morning bread in the afternoon, they don't compromise. They don't just run down to the supermarket to buy cheap rolls. They just close the shop for the day. Taking a hard, unyielding stand like that builds an impenetrable moat around your brand. A giant competitor can easily copy your features, and they can absolutely match your pricing, but they can never, ever copy your backbone.
So how do you actually market that unique, uncompromising stance without a massive advertising budget? Well, you emulate great chefs. Traditional corporate advertising relies on aggressively buying attention with millions and millions of dollars. But the lean, modern business buys attention with trust and education. Let me ask you, why do world-famous chefs share their exact, closely guarded recipes in cookbooks? Because teaching builds immense, unshakable authority. Even if I have a master chef's exact recipe right in my own kitchen, I'm still going to book a table at their restaurant to get that flawless execution and that unparalleled experience. Out-teaching your competition, rather than just trying to outspend them, builds an incredibly fierce, dedicated, and loyal audience over time. So share your secrets, show the messy, authentic behind-the-scenes stuff, educate your customer, and just be undeniably, authentically human.
Moving on to Section 5, lean hiring and culture, staying small.
It's really time to recognize that growing just for the sake of growth is a very dangerous ego trap. Remaining small, agile, and fiercely adaptable isn't merely a stepping stone to success, it is a superpower in its own right. But when the time comes that you absolutely must grow, you need to execute the lean hiring playbook. First up, do the work yourself so you actually understand the pain and reality of the job before handing it off. Second, hire only when it physically hurts, and I mean when your current team is absolutely drowning in sustained demand, not just some temporary little spike. Third, skip the whole formal interview charade. Test drive candidates with paid mini-projects. Traditional interviews only show you what people say, but real work shows you what they actually do. Fourth,
Hire managers of one. These are relentless executors who set their own priorities and don't require constant babysitting. And above all, ignore the Ivy League degrees. Clear communication, excellent writing, and actual battle-tested grit, that will always beat a thick padded resume.
And when you do finally bring those driven people into your ranks, you have to remember this absolute, undeniable truth. Culture is the byproduct of repeated behavior. You cannot artificially manufacture a great company culture just by throwing an expensive foosball table into a break room or hosting forced team-building retreats or slapping a laminated, meaningless mission statement up on the wall. That is just corporate theater. True culture emerges entirely from everyday friction and everyday choices. It's forged in the autonomy you give your team, the absolute trust you show by not treating them like children, and the transparency of your leadership, especially in the dark moments. Culture is action. It is built strictly through the behavior you reward and the behavior you tolerate, day in and day out.
Finally, Section 6. Act before inspiration expires. The urgency to build.
We have reached the absolute core of the lean business philosophy, the incredibly brief, fleeting window of opportunity you have to act. Let's just trace the life cycle of an idea for a second. On day one, you get that spark, right? That massive, overwhelming rush of excitement and raw, unbridled inspiration. It feels electric. But by month 2, the insidious doubt starts to creep in. You convince yourself you just need to wait for perfect conditions. Maybe more funding, a clearer schedule, a slightly better economy, or finding the absolute perfect partner. And by month 6, the inspiration has completely rotted away. The idea just feels heavy and burdensome. Waiting around for unlimited resources or the mythical perfect moment is honestly the fastest, most effective way to kill the emotional energy and momentum you need to actually build the thing. Spoiler alert, the perfect moment does not exist.
So hear this clearly, because it is the single most important lesson you'll take away today. Ideas are immortal. You could write a brilliant idea down in a notebook, toss it in a drawer, and it will sit there safely for a decade, completely unchanged. But inspiration is highly perishable. It has a strict, unforgiving expiration date. When that emotional fire hits, when you feel that undeniable burning drive to create something new, that is the exact moment you must strike. Do not put it on a shelf. Do not wait for the stars to align, because they never, ever will. Take whatever limited time, whatever scraps of money, and whatever severe constraints you have right this very second, and harness that perishable inspiration to build something real. Which leaves us with the only question that truly matters. If you stopped making excuses, if you completely abandoned the destructive myth of perfect conditions, and if you harness the raw, perishable inspiration you feel right now, what would you build today? Stop admiring your dreams from a safe distance. Embrace your constraints. Pick your fight. Start building. We want to know exactly what you are going to launch, so let us know in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will see you next time.